I still need to restore a joiner that I'm working on. So I'm gonna take some of this lumber to my friend's shop. Luckily, he lets me use that, and I can get some of this stuff jointed and milled up so that I can make the panels out of it. I've already marked out everything here for what we need for the floating shelves. It's not just a grocery getter. I was gonna take my truck, but it's all wet because it rained last night, so this is a better bet.
This is my friend's massive woodworking shop. It's his business, so don't just think this is a garage type thing, but I'm pretty jealous. I don't know about you. To make all of my pieces a little more manageable, I cut them down to the general length they needed to be, leaving them just a little bit long. Then I laid out the panels to see exactly how I wanted them to look, and I labeled them so that when I took them to the joiner, I could flip them every other one to kind of correct for any errors in the joiner. This allows me to get a really nice glue joint and come out with some really nice panels. We wanted these shelves to have a thicker look, so I'm cutting up some strips that I can glue onto the front and sides to make this look kind of like a big chunk of wood, even though it's really only about 3/4 inch thick. Then I just set up a stop block at the miter saw and cut them all to final length right there.
After I milled up all of the lumber for the shelves and the countertops are going to be a separate video, so definitely go watch that if you haven't already. But I let everything sit here with some spacers in between them just so the boards can kind of rest, get some of their tension out after they had their milling session. Now it's time to glue these things up. I only need 14 inches wide, just a little under that total thickness. So this is a little more than I need. That way I can trim them down to final size when that time comes. But I'm gonna go ahead and get these glued up. Hopefully all in this session. We'll see if I have enough clamps. If not, I'll have to do it in a couple sessions.
Sometimes you can't help but get glue all over your clamps, but with something like this where I'm only gonna have one joint, it's pretty easy to protect your clamps against glue dripping on them. I usually just use a little bit of painter's tape or some wax paper or something right underneath that joint, and surprisingly, it keeps a lot of the glue off. And a simple $1 silicone spatula does a great job to spread glue.
And you do not have to crank down on these clamps just a crazy amount. All you want is tighten enough that you see this really consistent bead line of glue coming out of here. And that should do just fine. I see that it's very consistent all the way through. I'm gonna wipe some of the excess off so I don't have to scrape it later. And that's it. I'm gonna glue up these others and we'll move on.
I got everything in clamps that evening, and my shop was just completely full of panel glue ups. Then it was back over to my friend's shop to use his wide belt sander. It really does a fast job on getting panels all the same thickness and sanded to a certain grit. I just went to 120 on this and then did a little bit of hand sanding after. I went ahead and set up a stop block so that I can make sure all of these shelves are exactly the same length and cut them to final length.
I wanted to show a few details and some changes that we've made now that I've already made these shelves and we found the brackets we want. So let me go over those. We were originally going to, when I cut all of the pieces, we were going to have things, let's see if I can do this. This was going to be underneath like that. So it would give an overall larger looking shelf. And then we would have some smaller pieces right here. It would kind of go on the edge underneath like that. So the whole thing would look like it's thicker. Well, the brackets we found are these matte black, really nice looking minimal brackets. And we think they'll show better by actually not having that lip all the way around. So we're just gonna go back, and plus we like the look of the slim shelf. So we're gonna go back to the shelf looking nice and slim like that. So it'll just be a little more minimal with the bracket underneath there. And I think that's the way to go. Something else to point out is the screws that they sent with these brackets are way too long for this type of situation. I'm going to have to do something to modify them because as you can see, they will go way through the front of the shelf. I'll probably just cut them off, and I don't really need the tip because I'll pre-drill where they're gonna go in the board. And then at that point, it'll just follow through where it needs to go. Now I've got a whole lot of sanding ahead of me. I'm going to sand these shelves up to about 120, not quite to their final, and that way I can go ahead and do some layout on them and get the brackets where they need to be. Since we made that design change and we're keeping the shelves thin, I am going to put a slight round over on the edges. This will still allow them to look very crisp, but not be so sharp to where when we're reaching and getting shoes, it's like hurting us. So I'm going to just do that on all of them real quick and then get to sanding. Up next on the list is to get the brackets kind of laid out and placed on all of the shelves here. And I've kind of figured out where I want to set those based on the studs or lack thereof that are on that wall they're going on. So I'm just gonna do a bunch of layout, pre-drill the holes that I'm able to, and get that going.
I did a little bit of figuring out exactly where on the wall these needed to go and the type of spacing I wanted each bracket so that they looked nice and they were all lined up. Once I kind of got that pattern down, I just hit repeat and did it 5 more times.
I'm going to take a little time and label each of these legs on each shelf, and I think that will save me some time. Since I had to cut these screws off, they're very specific in where they need to go back. Some of them were slightly different lengths and they basically cut their own threads. I think a little time up front like this will save me some time later.
Oh, this entire scene is out of focus? I'm really good at this. Anyway, in between coats, I would just barely scuff it with some 400 grit sandpaper, blow off the dust, and put on a few more coats. I think I did 3 in total.
Because of our lovely wall in that room, I'm able to hit studs with some of the shelf brackets, and the screws that came with them are this nice black color to match the black brackets. However, on the other side, I'm not going to be able to hit those a stud. So I picked up some drywall anchors that are really heavy duty, but you have to use the screws that come with it because that's how it functions, and they're all silver. So I picked up some of this gun bluing solution, this perma blue. You can actually chemically treat screws and turn them, it's really a dark blue, but it basically turns them black. Anyway, so that's what I'm gonna do now. I'm gonna use this solution for the first time, never tried it out, I've just seen people do it. I'm gonna cut down a solo cup, one of these little minis, and that way maybe it will work well as something to pour that into and dip it. This isn't going well. How do you even cut, bro? I really only need to do the heads of it. Pretty instant. Look at that.
Wow.
Look, that quick. Come around here and look. So when you just dip it, it's still kind of bronzy looking. Look how black this is, the one that's sitting down in it, compared to that one's kind of bronzy looking. So I'm gonna drop it in there. I don't really need to blue the whole thing, but it's just easier to dump them all the way in. Man, they turn fast. That's cool. I think it helps prevent rust also. The instructions say to let them sit in the solution for about a minute, then to stop the chemical reaction, I need to go rinse them in cold water. So that's what I'm gonna do now, but I'm pretty pleased with how they turned out just that quickly. That looks really cool. And it may not perfectly match our other things, but it's gonna match a lot closer.
Since this room was already painted, I needed to be careful marking out for where these shelves needed to go. I used some blue tape, that way I could find a truly plumb line and start working from there to make sure everything ended up level and plumb.
I'm gonna put this on here. If we go 4 off of the corner, it'll be consistent. I'll put the screw in like this. Can you just hold it where it can sit on my shoulder a little bit? Because I have to try to screw it in straight. Okay, it's in there. Now you can just let this pivot down and give yourself a break. It's on that screw. I got it. We're still close to that edge, right?
Yes.
Okay. What I'm gonna do, now this we do need to try to hold against the wall. And then you're looking at this. So there you go. It's between the two lines right
Perfectly,
here.
yes, it's perfectly in the middle.
I'm just marking on the wall so we're drilling into it anyway. Okay, so we have to, can you kind of swing it up without hitting the wall? Oh, good catch. Here, give me that. So you have your hands.
This ended up being kind of a pain and a bit of a process. The left-hand side we were able to put in the stud, but for the brackets to look right and look even on each of the shelves, where they landed, there was not a stud. All of the right side shelf brackets ended up in drywall anchors, so it was a little more of a process to get them in the wall, but we made it happen. Just like with most things that you have to do multiples of, after we did this first one, we figured out the process well enough that all of the rest of them went pretty fast. So we just repeated everything that we did on this first one, kind of peeling up that blue tape as we went, and installed all of the shelves.
Thanks so much for building with me. I really appreciate it. Be sure to check out the other videos in the playlist, and I've got a few more in this series I think you'll want to see.